The wind howled through the cracked observation dome, carrying whispers of extinction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, watching another section of the biodome collapse under the relentless environmental assault. Earth was dying, and everyone knew it. Sector 7 Research Facility stood as humanity's last bastion of hope, a concrete and titanium fortress nestled in the remnants of what was once the Andes mountain range. Outside, the landscape told a story of complete environmental collapse. Toxic storms swept across barren ground, the result of centuries of unchecked climate destruction and planetary abuse. Elena's fingers traced the holographic display, her dark eyes scanning fragmented data streams that most would have dismissed as random noise. But she saw something different, something that made her heart race with a combination of scientific excitement and desperate hope. "Maya," she called out, her voice sharp with intensity. Her 17-year-old daughter emerged from the adjacent lab, a complex neural interface wrapped around her temples. Maya Rodriguez was more machine than human these days, a walking computational marvel that represented humanity's last generation of true prodigies. Genetic modifications, neural augmentations, and a lifetime of specialized training had transformed her into something beyond a typical scientist. "I found something," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a complex quantum signature that looked like nothing more than mathematical chaos to the untrained eye. But Elena knew better. These weren't random data points. They were fragments of something far more significant. "It's a network," she explained, her hands moving through the holographic projection, pulling apart layers of encrypted information. Not just a transportation network, but something more. A quantum pathway that seems to respond to cognitive patterns. Maya's augmented eyes scanned the data, her brain processing information at speeds that would make supercomputers seem primitive. These signatures, they're not like anything in our current database. They're older, much older. The research facility was a last-ditch effort by the United Earth Council, a desperate attempt to find a solution before humanity's final extinction. Climate change, resource depletion, and decades of environmental warfare had reduced the human population to less than 500 million. Habitable zones were shrinking faster than anyone could have predicted. Dr. Akira Chen, the facility's lead quantum engineer, burst into the room. His cybernetic leg whirred with each step, a testament to the countless battles he'd survived. "Rodriguez, the council is pulling our funding. They want us to focus on traditional terraforming solutions." Elena laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed through the sterile laboratory. "Traditional solutions. We've tried everything. Atmospheric processors, genetic crop modification, climate reconstruction. Nothing works." The quantum data continued to dance across the holographic display. Something about the pattern was wrong. No, not wrong. Different. It challenged everything humanity understood about spatial navigation and quantum mechanics. "We're going to need an unauthorized probe," Elena said suddenly, her decision made. "Something that can pierce through these quantum signatures without alerting the Council's monitoring systems." Maya's augmented eyes flickered with a combination of excitement and apprehension. "That's borderline impossible. The energy requirements alone." "Impossible is what we do best," Elena interrupted. Her hands were already moving, reconfiguring research equipment that had been designed for mundane planetary analysis. The team worked with a desperate efficiency born of knowing their time was running out. Humanity needed a miracle, and they were determined to create one. Each modification to the probe was a calculated risk, pushing the boundaries of known quantum mechanics. As the final connections were made, the laboratory's environmental systems began to strain. Backup generators hummed with increasing intensity. Something was different about this probe, something that felt almost alive. "Quantum entanglement sequence initiated," Maya announced, her voice clinical yet charged with an underlying current of hope. The probe looked unremarkable, a sleek titanium cylinder no larger than a standard communications satellite, but its internal systems represented the pinnacle of human scientific achievement. Generations of research, countless failed attempts, and the collective desperation of a species on the brink of extinction had been poured into this single device. Alina's hand hovered over the activation switch. One press could mean discovery or destruction. One moment could change everything. For humanity, she whispered. And then she pressed the button. The United Earth Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. 17 of the most powerful politicians and scientific advisors sat rigidly, their faces a mixture of skepticism and barely concealed contempt. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the circular room, her weathered lab coat a stark contrast to the pristine corporate uniforms surrounding her. "You're proposing to waste our final resources on another impossible theory," Chancellor Victor Rice said, his augmented voice dripping with condescension. The Rodriguez family has a long history of scientific fantasies. Maya, standing just behind her mother, felt the tension crackling through the room like static electricity. Her neural implants were picking up micro-expressions, tracking the subtle physiological responses of each council member. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Alina's fingers brushed against a small quantum control device, the key to her unauthorized probe's activation. "What I'm proposing," she said carefully, "is our last chance at survival." The chamber's environmental controls suddenly stuttered. Holographic displays glitched, creating momentary shadows that seemed to move with impossible fluidity. Dr. Akira Chen, seated at the far end of the council chamber, leaned forward with an expression of growing anticipation. Then everything changed. A quantum pulse erupted from Alina's device. The world dissolved into a fractal landscape of impossible geometries. Council members screamed, some in terror, others in what sounded like ecstatic revelation. The very fabric of reality seemed to twist and fold around them. When consciousness returned, they were nowhere near Earth. Massive crystalline structures stretched across a vista of deep purple and emerald, defying every known law of physics. 3 suns, red, blue, and a sickly green, hung in a sky that seemed to breathe and pulse with living energy. Gravity felt wrong. Perspective felt wrong. "Status report," Elena demanded, her voice remarkably calm. Maya's neural interfaces were working overtime. "We've traveled approximately 3.2 million light-years from Earth. Current location: unknown. Quantum signature matches the network fragments we discovered." Chancellor Rice stumbled, his expensive environmental suit struggling to compensate for the alien atmosphere. "Rodriguez, what have you done?" Before anyone could respond, a massive shadow fell across the crystalline landscape. The Arikari hegemony's first contact vessel materialized, a living machine of impossible complexity, its hull seeming to shift and breathe like an organic entity. Unidentified transport. A translation matrix crackled to life. "You have violated protected spatial jurisdiction. Prepare for immediate containment and interrogation." Dr. Chen's hand moved almost imperceptibly. To anyone watching closely, it might have seemed like a simple adjustment of his cybernetic leg. But Maya's enhanced perception caught something else, a micro-transmission, encrypted and sent with surgical precision. "Mother," Maya whispered, "we have a problem." The Arikari vessel began charging weapons systems that defied human understanding. Quantum disruptors capable of unraveling molecular bonds. Gravitational weapons that could crush matter into infinitesimal points. Technological nightmares that made human military capabilities look like primitive toys. Alina's mind raced. They had one advantage: unpredictability. "Everyone," she commanded, "think differently. Completely differently." The quantum network responded. Reality itself seemed to ripple and bend around the human team. Crystalline structures shifted. Gravitational fields warped. The Arikari weapon systems began to destabilize, their perfect calculations suddenly contaminated by human cognitive chaos. Dr. Chen's betrayal became clear in that moment. His microtransmission had been a signal, not to the Arikari, but to someone else entirely, a corporate entity that had been waiting for precisely this moment. A secondary quantum signature emerged. Another transport, cutting through the alien landscape like a blade of pure information. Corporate extraction team, Maya announced, her voice clinical. Quadrant 7 Mercantile. They're here to capture our research. The United Earth Council members looked to Elena, suddenly understanding why she had been considered a dangerous maverick. This wasn't just a scientific expedition. This was humanity's first true test of survival beyond their dying planet. Elena Rodriguez smiled, a dangerous, calculated expression that promised nothing but absolute defiance. Well, she said, let's see how they handle something they can't predict. The quantum network pulsed around them, waiting, watching, responding to human thought in ways no civilization had ever discovered. First contact had just become something entirely unexpected. The alien crystalline landscape continued to shift and breathe around them, defying every known principle of spatial physics. Maya Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of a developing phenomenon that would rewrite the fundamental understanding of consciousness and quantum mechanics. Her neural implants were changing. No longer just sophisticated computational devices, they were becoming something else. A living interface with the quantum network that surrounded them. Each thought created ripples in the fabric of reality, each emotion a potential catalyst for impossible transformations. The network is alive, Maya whispered, her voice carrying a strange harmonic resonance that seemed to echo through multiple dimensions simultaneously. It's not just infrastructure, it's a living cognitive system. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched her daughter with a mixture of scientific fascination and maternal terror. The neural augmentations that were supposed to give Maya an edge in scientific research were mutating, creating connections that no one could have predicted. Dr. Akira Chen, still nursing the wounds of his failed corporate betrayal, approached cautiously. His cybernetic leg whirred with each step, a mechanical counterpoint to the organic, breathing environment around them. The quantum signatures are responding to her, he said, consulting a handheld diagnostic device that seemed to be struggling to make sense of the data. But it's not like any interface we've ever seen. She's not just reading the network, she's negotiating with it. Chancellor Victor Reyes, still recovering from the initial transport, looked on in a state of horrified fascination. The United Earth Council members huddled together, their previous political divisions forgotten in the face of something truly unprecedented. Maya's eyes began to change. The iris shifted from deep brown to a luminescent pattern that seemed to contain entire star systems. Fractals of quantum information danced across her skin, creating intricate patterns that defied mathematical description. "We've been approaching this all wrong," she announced, her voice now carrying multiple simultaneous frequencies. "The network isn't a transportation system. It's a testing mechanism." A holographic display erupted around her, filled with computational models that would have taken traditional supercomputers millennia to generate. Mathematical equations twisted and transformed, showing complex interactions between consciousness, quantum mechanics, and something entirely new. Each civilization that discovered this network was tested, Maya continued. But the test isn't about technological capability. It's about cognitive flexibility, adaptability, the ability to think beyond established paradigms. Elena recognized the transformation happening to her daughter. This was more than scientific discovery. This was evolution in real time. The crystalline landscape began to respond more actively. Structures that had seemed passive now moved with purpose, creating complex geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with a form of intelligence. Gravity became a suggestion rather than a law, with different areas of the environment responding to thought patterns. The Arikari and the Zorn Collective, Maya explained, they approached this as a technological challenge. They tried to map and control. But this network requires something different. It requires understanding. Dr. Chen's diagnostic equipment began to fail catastrophically. Traditional sensors simply could not process the level of information being generated. The quantum network was rewriting the very rules of observation. A warning emerged. Prolonged exposure to the network was causing fundamental changes to human cognitive structures. The neural augmentations that had been designed to enhance human capability were being transformed into something entirely new. We're not just observing the network, Elena realized. We're being evaluated by it. The corporate extraction team that had followed them, agents from Quadrant 7 Mercantile, found their advanced technology rendered useless. Weapons systems, communication devices, even basic environmental suits began to dissolve into quantum potentiality. Maya turned to face them, her transformed state both terrifying and magnificent. Humanity's greatest strength has always been adaptation, she said. The ability to rewrite our own rules, to challenge every established limitation. The quantum network pulsed in agreement. Somewhere between scientific discovery and evolutionary leap, humanity was about to prove itself once again, not through brute force or technological superiority, but through the most powerful resource they possessed, the ability to reimagine what was possible. The test had begun. The Galactic Confederation's emergency summit burned with collective panic. Holographic representations of 12 different species flickered across the massive central chamber, a testament to both technological prowess and mounting fear. Ambassador Zarakil of the Arakari hegemony slammed her crystalline appendage against the conference pedestal. Humans have discovered something that threatens the entire established galactic order, she hissed, her translation matrix vibrating with barely contained rage. The Zorn Collective's representative, a massive biomechanical entity that seemed more machine than organic, projected a detailed analysis of the human quantum breakthrough. Trillions of computational threads wove through the holographic display, each one highlighting the unprecedented threat posed by humanity's recent discovery. Aboard the Human Expedition's modified research vessel, Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the developing political storm with a predator's intensity. The quantum network they'd discovered was more than a transportation system. It was becoming a weapon of unprecedented potential. They're going to try to contain us, Elena said quietly to her daughter Maya, whose transformed consciousness now seemed to exist simultaneously across multiple quantum states. Containment means elimination. Maya's eyes, no longer fully human, shifted through impossible color spectrums. They don't understand, she responded, her voice carrying multiple harmonic frequencies. We're not just a threat. We're an opportunity they can't comprehend. Dr. Akira Chen, still wrestling with his previous betrayal, had become an unexpected ally. His cybernetic systems had been partially integrated with the quantum network, giving the human team unprecedented intelligence capabilities. Quadrant 7 Mercantile is mobilizing, Chen announced, his augmented eye displaying encrypted transmission patterns. They'd formed an alliance with 3 separate alien corporate entities. They want to weaponize our research. The vessel's quantum drive hummed with a living energy, responding to the team's collective thoughts. Where traditional spacecraft relied on predictable propulsion systems, this ship moved through reality itself, bending spatial constraints through pure cognitive intention. A massive interdimensional barrier began to form around their current location. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced containment technologies were attempting to trap the human expedition, cutting them off from further quantum network exploration. Helena smiled. Containment had never been humanity's strong suit. Maya, she said, show them what adaptive really means. Her daughter's consciousness expanded. The quantum network responded like a living organism, creating fractal pathways that defied the Confederation's containment attempt. Entire sections of space-time began to twist and reconfigure, rendering the most advanced alien tracking systems completely useless. The Zorn Collective's tracking algorithms crashed simultaneously. Millions of computational threads unraveled, unable to process the sheer unpredictability of human cognitive navigation. They're treating this like a technological problem, Maya said, her voice carrying a mixture of scientific fascination and strategic calculation. But it's a cognitive challenge. They can't map what they can't predict. Strategic disruption became their primary weapon. The human team began systematically destabilizing key political and economic structures within the Galactic Confederation. Not through traditional warfare, but by introducing quantum-level uncertainties that made long-established systems fundamentally unreliable. Trade routes collapsed. Communication networks became unreliable. The perfectly calibrated political machine of the Confederation began to show unexpected fractures. Ambassador Zarakil of the Arakari watched in mounting horror as her civilization's most sophisticated control mechanisms began to fail. Humanity wasn't just exploring the quantum network, they were reimagining the very concept of controlled systems. A personal vendetta emerged from the chaos. Dr. Chen's previous corporate contact, now revealed as a high-ranking Zorn collective agent named Vexthar, had been tracking the human expedition with obsessive determination. Humans are a viral information system. Vexthar transmitted across encrypted channels. Unpredictable. Dangerous. They must be contained. But containment was becoming impossible. The quantum network pulsed with potential. Humanity had become more than just another spacefaring civilization. They were a fundamental disruption, a species that refused to be categorized, controlled, or understood through traditional frameworks. Elena Rodriguez looked out at the shifting quantum landscape and saw something the Galactic Confederation could not, a future defined by possibility rather than limitation. The quantum Cold War had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The quantum network revealed itself as something far more ancient and complex than anyone had imagined. A series of impossible challenges materialized around the human expedition, tests that went beyond physical constraints, probing the very essence of collective and individual consciousness. The first challenge emerged as a spatial paradox. Reality folded in on itself, creating a labyrinth where physical laws became mere suggestions. Gravity shifted unpredictably. Time fragmented into non-linear streams. Each member of the expedition found themselves simultaneously existing in multiple states of being. Dr. Elena Rodriguez faced a cognitive reconstruction zone, where her memories became malleable building blocks. Past experiences twisted and recombined, challenging her understanding of personal identity. She watched memories of her daughter's childhood, her scientific breakthroughs, her moments of deepest failure, all becoming fluid, interconnected possibility spaces. It's testing our adaptability, Maya announced, her consciousness now a complex network that extended beyond her physical form. Her neural augmentations had transformed completely, becoming a living interface with the quantum network. Not just technological capability, but our fundamental capacity to reimagine ourselves. Dr. Akira Chen's cybernetic systems began to break down and reconstruct themselves. Each failure became an opportunity for redesign. His mechanical limbs transformed, incorporating quantum-level adaptive mechanisms that responded to thought patterns rather than traditional mechanical instructions. The Zorn Collective's tracking team watched in horrified fascination. Their most advanced observational technologies captured fragments of the human team's transformation, data that defied every known principle of evolutionary development. The second challenge targeted collective problem-solving. The quantum network created a scenario that required simultaneous individual innovation and collective coordination. Holographic challenge spaces materialized, each presenting seemingly impossible scenarios that could only be solved through unprecedented levels of cooperative thinking. One test involved stabilizing a collapsing quantum matrix, a challenge that required each team member to contribute a unique cognitive approach. Elena's scientific methodical thinking, Maya's adaptive consciousness, Chen's mechanical problem-solving. Each perspective became a critical component of a complex solution. Humanity's strength has never been individual brilliance, Elena realized mid-challenge. It's our ability to integrate different perspectives, to turn individual differences into collective strength. The third challenge pushed the boundaries of cognitive transformation. Maya's consciousness began to expand beyond individual human limitation. She became a living bridge between human potential and the quantum network's fundamental structure. Visions flooded through her, glimpses of civilizations that had previously encountered this network. The Arakari's rigid technological approach. The Zorn Collective's computational determinism. Each had failed the fundamental test of adaptive consciousness. Humanity represented something different, not a fixed system, but a constantly evolving, fundamentally unpredictable cognitive engine. Chancellor Victor Reyes, who had survived the initial quantum transport, found himself confronting his deepest fears and most profound aspirations. The network stripped away political personas, revealing the complex human beneath institutional facades. "We are not defined by our limitations," Maya's expanded consciousness proclaimed, her voice resonating across multiple dimensional frequencies. "We are defined by our capacity to transcend them." The quantum network pulsed in response. Something ancient and watchful seemed to be observing, evaluating. Dr. Chen's cybernetic systems completed their transformation. No longer a simple mechanical augmentation, they had become a living quantum interface, a hybrid of human intention and adaptive technology. "The network is more than a transportation system," Chen announced. "It's an evolutionary mechanism, a way to identify species capable of addressing fundamental cosmic challenges." Elena realized the true nature of their discovery. This was not just about human survival or technological breakthrough. This was a test for something much larger, a potential cosmic role that humanity had been unknowingly preparing for throughout its turbulent history. Survival, adaptation, transformation. The quantum crucible continued to reshape reality around them, waiting to see how humanity would respond to its ultimate challenge. The test was far from over. The first shots of the Galactic War arrived not with weapons, but with information. Quantum transmissions erupted across 1,000 star systems, carrying the story of humanity's quantum network discovery. Where the Galactic Confederation had attempted to suppress and contain, the human expedition weaponized knowledge itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of a communication storm that would rewrite galactic power structures. Behind her, Maya's transformed consciousness acted as a living quantum transmitter, broadcasting revelations that would shake the foundations of established civilization. "We're not just sharing information," Elena explained to the stunned remnants of the United Earth Council members. "We're providing a blueprint for resistance." Subjugated species within the Galactic Confederation began to receive detailed insights into the quantum network, not as a technological system, but as a cognitive liberation tool. Worlds that had been under the heel of the Arikari hegemony and Zorn collective for millennia suddenly found themselves with a weapon more powerful than any physical armament: hope. The Arikari's response was swift and brutal. They deployed their most advanced quantum suppression technologies, weapons designed to unravel complex information systems at the molecular level. Entire communication networks should have dissolved under the assault. But humanity had already rewritten the rules. Maya's consciousness had become a distributed network, existing simultaneously across multiple quantum states. Each transmission was a hydra. Cut one path, and 1,000 more would emerge. The more the Arikari tried to suppress, the more widespread the information became. Vexthar, the high-ranking Zorn collective agent, watched in mounting terror as their carefully constructed galactic hierarchy began to crumble. The human approach was nothing like traditional warfare. They weren't conquering. They were liberating. They're using the network as a cognitive virus, Vexthar transmitted to the collective's central command. Not destroying. Transforming. On the human expedition's modified research vessel, Dr. Akira Chen mapped the expanding rebellion. Cybernetic systems that had once been purely mechanical now pulsed with quantum-level adaptability. Each system was learning, evolving, responding to the collective consciousness of oppressed civilizations. A shocking revelation emerged from the quantum network's deeper layers. The system was more than just a transportation mechanism or a testing ground. It was a galaxy-wide evolutionary mechanism, created by an ancient civilization to identify species capable of addressing a fundamental cosmic threat. "The network has been waiting," Maya announced, her voice carrying multiple harmonic frequencies. "Not just for a technological solution, but for a species capable of fundamental reimagination." Elena understood the deeper implication. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt, to challenge existing paradigms, to see potential where others saw only limitation. The Galactic Confederation's military response was immediate. Massive fleet formations began converging on the human expedition's last known coordinates: quantum suppression fields, dimensional destabilization weapons, technologies so advanced they bordered on magic. But magic had always been humanity's specialty. Each weapon that struck the human vessel seemed to dissipate, its energy absorbed and transformed by the quantum network. The ship wasn't just defending, it was learning, adapting, turning attack vectors into opportunities for further understanding. Chancellor Victor Reyes, who had once been a skeptical political operative, now understood the true nature of their mission. This wasn't just about survival. This was about proving humanity's cosmic potential. Vexthar's final transmission captured the mounting desperation of the established powers. Humans are not a species, the message read. They are a cognitive revolution. As the battle reached its crescendo, Alina faced an impossible choice. The quantum network was offering something beyond mere survival. A chance to prevent a cosmic-level threat that had destroyed the civilization that created the network. But the price would be total transformation. Humanity stood at the precipice of its greatest moment, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something entirely new. The rebellion had only just begun. The quantum network transformed into a living tapestry of rebellion, with humanity at its intricate center. Billions of minds across countless worlds began to see possibility where once there was only oppression. On the edge of the Arakary's most fortified system, the first true revolution began. A mining colony that had endured generations of brutal subjugation suddenly discovered its collective voice. Their quantum communication interfaces, previously tools of control, became instruments of liberation. Maya Rodriguez's expanded consciousness acted as a catalyst, a living bridge between individual potential and collective awakening. Her transformation was no longer just a scientific marvel, but a beacon of hope for subjugated civilizations. "We are not teaching them to fight," Maya explained to her mother, her perception spanning multiple dimensional frequencies. "We are teaching them to reimagine." Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as the rebellion spread like a cognitive wildfire. Traditional military strategies became obsolete. This was a war fought with ideas, with perspective, with the fundamental human ability to see beyond existing limitations. Dr. Akira Chen's cybernetic systems mapped the uprising in real time. Each transmission was a quantum entanglement of hope, spreading faster than any conventional communication network could suppress. The Galactic Confederation's communication systems began to fail, overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of human-inspired resistance. The Zorn Collective's most advanced predictive algorithms crashed repeatedly. Their computational systems, designed to model and control complex social systems, simply could not process the fundamental randomness of human-inspired liberation. On 1,000 worlds, the pattern repeated. Slaves became workers. Workers became planners. Planners became innovators. The quantum network provided not just communication, but a fundamental reimagining of social and political potential. Vexthar, the high-ranking Zorn Collective agent, watched in mounting horror as their carefully constructed galactic hierarchy dissolved. Each attempt to suppress the uprising created more fractures, more opportunities for resistance. "Humanity is not a species," Vexthar transmitted to the collective's central command. "They are a cognitive virus, an idea that cannot be contained." The most remarkable transformations happened in the most unexpected places. A mining colony in the Epsilon Indi system developed a new form of collective decision-making that combined individual creativity with collaborative problem-solving. A prison world transformed its entire economic structure, turning punishment systems into rehabilitation and innovation centers. Elena understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just a rebellion. This was a fundamental reimagining of what civilization could be. Maya's consciousness continued to expand. She was becoming something beyond human, a living interface between individual potential and collective possibility. Her neural networks now spanned multiple quantum states, creating pathways of communication that defied traditional understanding. The network is more than a transportation system, Maya announced. It's an evolutionary mechanism, a way to identify species capable of addressing fundamental cosmic challenges. The HFY hegemony's most fortified systems began to crumble, not through military assault, but through a radical reimagining of social potential. Their control mechanisms, built on millennia of precise computational modeling, simply could not process the fundamental unpredictability of human-inspired liberation. Chancellor Victor Reyes, who had once been a skeptical political operative, now understood the true nature of their mission. This wasn't just about survival. This was about proving humanity's cosmic potential. Quantum transmissions carried more than information. They carried hope. They carried the fundamental human belief that things could be different, that limitations were not destiny, but merely temporary constraints waiting to be challenged. Dr. Chen's cybernetic systems completed their transformation. No longer a simple mechanical augmentation, they had become a living quantum interface, a hybrid of human intention and adaptive technology. As the rebellion reached its crescendo, Elena realized they were offering something far more profound than mere resistance. They were providing a blueprint for a fundamentally different way of existing, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as continuous creators of possibility. The quantum network pulsed with anticipation. Something ancient and watchful seemed to be observing, evaluating humanity's potential. The cognitive uprising had only just begun. The quantum network reached its final stage of evaluation. Humanity stood at the precipice of a choice that would determine the fate of not just their species, but potentially all intelligent life in the universe. A massive quantum construct materialized around the human expedition, a testing ground that defied every known principle of physics, space, and time. Infinite possibilities stretched in every direction, each potential reality shimmering with potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood immediately. This was more than a test. This was an invitation. Maya's transformed consciousness had become something beyond human comprehension. She existed simultaneously across multiple quantum states, a living bridge between individual potential and cosmic possibility. Her neural networks pulsed with an intelligence that transcended traditional understanding. "We can save Earth," Maya announced, her voice carrying multiple harmonic frequencies. "Or we can become something entirely new." The quantum construct presented three fundamental paths. First, complete planetary restoration. The ability to return to Earth and reverse centuries of environmental devastation. Humanity could reclaim its original home, healing the planet that had brought them to the brink of extinction. Second, galactic liberation. Continuing the cognitive uprising, dismantling the oppressive structures of the Galactic Confederation, and creating a new framework of interstellar cooperation. Third, transcendence, a complete transformation of human consciousness, becoming a species that could navigate the quantum network not as travelers, but as fundamental architects of reality. Dr. Akira Chen's cybernetic systems analyzed the possibilities. His augmented perception mapped out potential consequences with mathematical precision. "Each choice carries profound implications," he said, "not just for humanity, but for the entire concept of intelligent life." The Zorn Collective and HFY hegemony watched in horrified fascination. Their most advanced monitoring systems could barely comprehend the quantum construct that surrounded the human expedition. Vexthar, the high-ranking alien agent who had pursued them across multiple star systems, transmitted a final message of desperate warning. Humanity does not understand the cosmic responsibilities of such a choice. Elena laughed, a sharp, defiant sound that echoed through quantum realities. "Understanding," she said, "has never been our limitation." Chancellor Victor Reyes, who had transformed from a political operative to a true believer in human potential, stood beside Elena. The remaining members of the United Earth Council watched through quantum transmissions, understanding that this moment would define their species' future. Maya's consciousness expanded, providing insights into the deeper nature of the choice. The quantum network was more than a testing mechanism. It was an evolutionary filter, a way to identify species capable of addressing fundamental cosmic challenges. We are not just choosing for ourselves, Maya explained. We are choosing for every species that will follow. The quantum construct began to respond to human thought in ways that defied traditional understanding. Potential realities shifted and merged. Entire evolutionary paths became malleable, responsive to collective human intention. Dr. Chen's final computational analysis revealed the true nature of their discovery. The quantum network was created by a civilization that had faced an existential threat, so profound that they needed to find a species capable of addressing it. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt, to reimagine, to see potential where others saw only limitation. Elena looked at her daughter, no longer fully human, but something more, a living testament to their species' potential for transformation. "What do we choose?" she asked. Maya's response came not in words, but in a quantum burst of pure possibility. They would choose all of it. Transcendence was not about abandoning their humanity, but about embracing its most fundamental quality, the ability to continuously reimagine what was possible. The quantum network pulsed with anticipation. Something ancient and watchful seemed to recognize that it had found what it had been searching for. Humanity had arrived, and everything was about to change.